Yo, what's up guys, Alf here, and today I'm going to be doing a full in-depth deck breakdown of a deck that I've recently used to hit rank 1 with on the Arena ladder. As you can see from the Arena Pro Tracker screenshot here, I'm currently 31-8 with the deck, so it's been performing really well for me. And now before I get into it, there's going to be an MTG zone link down in the description. If you click on that, you'll have the full deck list there that you can import into Arena if you want to try the deck out for yourself. And I'm also in the process of writing a full text article about this deck for MTG Zone Premium that will have more details, a full sideboard guide, how I changed the deck for best of one, and some tips and tricks to help you play the deck as well. So as soon as that's finished and up, I'll link that down in the description as well. But anyway, with that all out of the way, this is my green-white Helioak Reconstruction deck in Historic. Now, Helioak has been a combo deck in Historic for quite a while now. In fact, I think the very first video I did on this channel was covering Helioak, but it hasn't really felt viable for a while. You know, there's been quite a few issues with the deck, but recently I've been returning to it mainly because of the printing of Kyler's Reconstruction. I feel like this card definitely helps to solve a lot of the problems that the deck has, and there are also some really nice sideboard cards that help the deck be a bit more well positioned in the current metagame as well. So if you're not familiar with this deck, it's basically a life gain synergy combo deck, and the combo in this deck revolves around Heliod Suncrowned, Scurryoak, and then one of our life gain enablers. So Lunark Veteran, Soul Warden, and Prosperous Innkeeper are all life gain enablers in that when they're on the battlefield, we gain a life whenever another creature enters the battlefield. So the way the combo works is, say we have a life gain enabler like Prosperous Innkeeper in play alongside the Heliod Suncrowned. If we cast a Scurryoak, when it enters the battlefield, we gain a life off the Innkeeper trigger. That then triggers the Heliod, which then allows us to put a +1/+1 counter on the Scurryoak. And then once you put a +1/+1 counter on the Scurryoak, it creates an extra 1/1, which then triggers the Innkeeper again, which then triggers the Heliod, which then triggers the Scurryoak. So as you can see, we've got an infinite loop here going where you're essentially putting infinite +1/+1 counters on Scurryoak, gaining infinite life, and putting infinite putting infinite 1/1 scroll tokens in play. And then if you have two life gain enablers when you're doing that, you get infinite +1/+1 counters across any of your creatures as well. So obviously that's really powerful. It's almost always going to be good enough to win you the game unless the opponent has like a board sweeper on the following turn. So obviously that's really powerful. And the other great thing about this deck is it also has a pretty sick plan B as well in Voice of the Blessed and Trellisara. So these are both additional payoffs for running a bunch of life gain enablers in the deck. So Voice of the Blessed, 2 mana 2/2. Whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. Once it has 4 counters, it gains Flying and Vigilance, which is really nice because Voice of the Blessed is a really good way to close the game out, especially against decks that don't have blockers that have flying or reach. You know, oftentimes you'll just win the game making a really big Voice of the Blessed and attacking without even needing to combo off. And then once it has 10 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it gains Indestructible. Now, for the most part, you know, that's not super relevant, but there will be certain matchups, you know, especially against a deck like Rakdos Midrange, for example, where they kind of rely on stuff like Fatal Push or Destruction-based removal in general to interact with you. So if you have a bunch of life gain enablers, or, you know, you've managed to hit a big Collector's Company or Kyler's Reconstruction, getting this up to 10 +1/+1 counters can actually matter in matchups like that as well. And then Trellisara, kind of similar, 2 mana 2/2. This one's legendary. Whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. But instead of gaining any abilities, you scry one each time. And obviously in a combo deck, scrying is really powerful because it allows you to dig for your combo pieces. But it's also really, really sick in the early game at just smoothing your draws out. You know, a common curve out that you really want to set up if you can is turn 1 Lunark Veteran or Soul Warden into turn 2 Trellisara just to start scrying, you know, help you dig for land drops if you need them, help you dig for combo pieces, scry away lands if you already have enough. So having Voice of the Blessed and Trellisara as kind of a backup plan without even needing to combo off gives the deck another line of attack, which is really nice. And also there's just lots of cross synergy between all the combo pieces anyway. You know, like Heliod and the life gain enablers work really well together. Scurryoak is kind of like the odd piece out, but you can still have some nice synergies without Heliod, where say, for example, you have like a Scurryoak and a Soul Warden. If you then cast a Voice of the Blessed or Trellisara, you automatically put a +1/+1 counter on it because of the Evolve, which then puts another Squirrel in play, which then triggers the Life Gain Enabler again, which then gives you another Voice of the Blessed or Trellisara trigger. So there's a ton of cross synergy between all the pieces, which makes the deck work really well. And then at the top end, we've also got 4 copies of Collected Company. So 4 mana instant, look at the top 6 cards of your library, put up to 2 creature cards with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield. So I definitely think that this is one of the best Collected Company decks in the whole format because you can hit all of your combo pieces off this, which is really huge. And even if you don't hit the combo, you know, there's tons of really nice synergy you can hit, like even just hitting a life gain enabler and a Voice of the Blessed, or, you know, Heliod and a life gain enabler if you already have like a Voice of the Blessed or Trellisara out. So Collector's Company is great. The other really big bonus of Collector's Company is that it's instant speed. You know, the main weakness of the combo in this deck is that you don't kill the turn you combo off, which means you are kind of weak to board sweepers like Supreme Verdict or Divine Purge, for example. And so being able to potentially combo off at the end of your opponent's turn off of Collected Company kind of, skirts around that a bit. It enables you to combo off during your opponent's end step and then immediately just untap and attack for lethal. So Collected Company, really, really huge. And this is kind of the core of the deck that's been around for a while. But I felt like the main issue I was having with the deck is that it really struggled against decks that have a lot of interaction, mainly stuff like Rakdos Midrange, where they have a bunch of discard spells and single target removal, or Blue-White Control, especially the Lotus Field variants where they have strict Proctor. But Control has sweepers, basically any deck that's capable of just dealing with your early setup. Because this deck in general, or like older builds of this deck anyway, really struggle to get back into the game when they're behind, because you just don't top deck very well, particularly. Like Heliod sticking around because it's hard to interact with can lead to some decent draws off the top, but in general, outside of Collected Company, you didn't really have good ways to recover if the opponent dealt with all your early stuff, and Collected Company being only 4 copies, you'd have to get pretty lucky to hit it. And that's the main reason why I really like Kyler's Reconstruction in this deck. So this is another card that's very similar to Collected Company, a new card from the latest set Brothers War, and it costs 3 white and X, and you look at the top 7 cards of your library, put up to X artifact and or creature cards with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this is obviously very similar to Collected Company. Now it is worse on rate for 4 mana. Obviously, Collected Company is way better for 4 mana because you get 2 creatures, whereas Kyler's Reconstruction only gets 1, and it's sorcery speed, which is a pretty big drawback, but as you start to get more mana, that is when this becomes really sick. So if you play this for X equals 2, it's actually better than Collected Company because you put 2 creatures in, but you look 7 deep rather than 6, so you look an extra card deep. And then if you can get to X equals 3, you can potentially just combo off, even if you have a completely empty board. If you top deck this with 6 mana, you can potentially hit Heliod, Helioak, and a life gain enabler and just combo off out of nowhere, which is so powerful. Looking 7 deep is a lot. And this really, really goes a long way to fix that problem I was talking about where against the super interactive decks, which are generally your worst matchups, you really struggle to top deck well. But now with 4 Kyler's Reconstruction and 4 Collected Company, you have a lot of really good draws off the top, especially if the game's going long. And that's the other thing about this deck. Even if you are against a very interactive deck like Rakdos Midrange, for example, you're generally quite good at buying yourself a lot of turns because you gain a lot of life. Even if the opponent can kill your stuff, you normally gain, 10, 15 life, which buys you a few turns. And, buying yourself, when you have 6 mana in play, buying yourself turns to potentially rip a Kyler's Reconstruction off the top can often just win you those sorts of games. So I feel like running this alongside Collected Company really helps to solve some of the bad matchups. Now, I will say that this is definitely a card that I do board out quite a lot in other matchups, but Game 1, as you can see, we have no interaction in the deck, so we're basically just trying to race. And having 4 Collected Company, 4 Kyler's Reconstruction really helps you be able to race other decks, basically. It helps you to find your combo a lot more consistently, which means that Game 1 you can just race, and then post-sideboard you can keep this in against the interactive decks where it's at its best, and then in the matchups where you want to pivot into something else, you can just board this out and bring in some removal against the aggro decks, bring in some hate pieces against combo, bring in some stuff to help against control. So I really like this as a way to just maximize finding your combo Game 1 to be able to race the opponent, because another thing about the metagame right now, the only deck that I can think of that you're really like that is able to beat your combo is something like Control that has sweepers in it. Basically every other commonly played deck right now is really going to struggle to beat your combo, so if you can combo off before the opponent kills you, you're odds on favourites to win that, and Kyler's Reconstruction definitely helps that Game 1, and it also helps against the worst matchups, the more interactive decks like Rakdos Midrange, like Blue-White Control, at just being able to come back from behind. So I'm a big fan of this card. In terms of the card choices themselves, the life gain enablers I've gone for here, Prosperous Innkeeper, especially in conjunction with Kyler's Reconstruction, is nice because the treasure token allows you to play X equals 2 on turn 4, X equals 3 on turn 5, which is really huge. But the reason I've opted to go for 4 Lunok Veteran, 4 Soul Warden, and only 3 Innkeeper is because, like I said, we're not running any interaction, so Game 1 is all about racing, and you really want to be able to get off to a fast start to be able to race. Obviously Historic's a very fast format, so you want to maximize your starts where you go turn 1 Veteran or Soul Warden into a turn 2 Voice of the Blessed or Trelisara. That's one of the main reasons that I'm running for Trelisara, even though it's legendary. I mean, in general, this is a card you don't really mind drawing in multiples, because if the first one sticks around, you're usually going to be accruing a ton of value off it, so, it doesn't really matter if you have the second one in hand, because you can scry extra copies away, you're going to be getting value off it, and it's going to be prime target for your opponent's removal as well, so having a backup is often useful. But in general, maximising your chances of going Veteran or Warden into Voice of the Blessed or Trelisara on turn 2 really enables you to race game 1, which is really important. Another card that I'm a big fan of in this deck is a Johnny's Welcome. I think this is a really great life gain enabler because it can't be hit by creature removal. Having life gain enabler that sticks around for the rest of the game means that a lot of your top decks are really good, but unfortunately in this build of the deck you can't really afford to run that, because with 4 Collected Company and 4 Kyle's Reconstruction you really need to have a high creature count so that your hits off this are consistent. So that kind of explains the numbers of stuff in here. The mana base, the only real changes from the older builds is, first of all, I've gone up to 25 lands, which I think is a really important change with Kyle's Reconstruction. This is definitely a deck where if you're running 4 of both of these, you really can't afford to be missing land drops. And in general as well, Helioak has always been a deck where I've wanted to increase the land count, but I can't really afford to because you don't have that much top end before you're running Kyle's Reconstruction. The older builds where you just have Collected Company, you really couldn't afford to go higher than 24 because you just end up flooding out a lot. But the issue with this deck is you really want to hit your 4th land on curve as often as possible, not only for Collected Company, but also because a very common curve out that you want to be able to do is turn 3 Heliod into turn 4 Soul Warden or Lunarch Veteran into Scurryoak to punish your opponent for tapping out on their turn 3 or 4, because oftentimes you want to hold on to your life gain enabler, not just run it out into your opponent's removal, and hold on to both of the combo pieces so you can just go off if the opponent ever taps out. And missing your 4th land on curve can really, stop you from doing that. But yeah, like I said, because we're running 4 of both of these, running a high land count isn't as much of an issue, because even if you do end up flooding out, you have 8 really, really sick top decks, and Kyle's Reconstruction, you actively want to have a bunch of lands in play when you draw it anyway. In terms of the actual lands themselves, Iganju and Boseiju are free to run as one of the utility lands, and then the rest of the deck, rest of the mana base, pretty simple. Brushland is a great addition to this deck from the latest set as well. You really want to be able to curve out white on turn 1 into white-white, and white-green on turn 2 for the Voice of the Blessed Trelisara starts. And so Brushland really enables that. Because we really want to have those starts consistently, we're also having to run 4 Sunpetal Grove, which is the main reason I'm only running these 2 as utility lands, because for Sunpetal Grove to be entering untapped, you do need to be running a decent number of plains and forests. So obviously we've got 6 plains, 1 forest, and the Temple Gardens as well, which has felt enough to enable the Sunpetal Grove. But yeah, like I said, since we're basically just racing game 1, you really need to be able to curve out Soul Warden or Veteran into Voice of the Blessed or Trelisara on turn 2 as consistently as possible, so Sunpetal Grove is important for that. So that's the main deck. Like I said, I think it's really sick. Now, I will preface this by saying that I don't think this is going to help much in Best of 1. I think Kyle's Reconstruction in this deck is very much a consideration to the Best of 3 metagame, because I think Helioak's worst matchups are the interactive decks like Rakdos Midrange that aren't really that popular in Best of 1, and I also think Kyle's Reconstruction is probably too slow for Best of 1, but in Best of 3, it really helps to fix those interactive matchups that are pretty bad for you in general. In terms of the sideboard, we've got some extra removal here. We've got 3 Portable Hole and 2 Skyclave Apparition for the aggro matchups. I've gone for the 3-2 split here for a couple of reasons. First of all, a deck like Is It Wizards can be tricky if you're just relying on Skyclave Apparition, especially if you're going second, because a deck like Wizards is going to be able to race you, and their burn spells line up pretty well against your small creatures as well. So having Portable Hole as turn 1 interaction goes a really long way to help stabilize against them and make sure they don't run you over. Second of all, it's also very important to be able to kill Hushbringer and Strict Proctor as well, but Hushbringer in general, because it's more common because of like Thopters and Auras and stuff like that, is just the best card against your deck because it shuts off basically everything, all of the life gain triggers, all of the Heliod triggers and stuff like that. So Portable Hole, running 3 means that you're pretty likely to draw your out to Hushbringer, which is pretty important. The one card I do have my eye on though is Rampaging Ferocidon. I think the red aggressive decks are definitely going to be running that card more because of the the Trapfinder Traveler deck. I definitely think that's the deck to beat right now, and so I imagine a lot of the aggressive red decks are going to be running Rampaging Ferocidon, which is another card this deck struggles to beat, and Apparitioners are only out to it in the 75, but I don't think red aggressive decks are going to be that popular. And, you know, you can still beat Ferocidon. You know, I've managed to beat it multiple times without the Apparition, but it is pretty difficult. But either way, if Ferocidon becomes more popular, then I might consider running more Apparitions. But right now, I like the 3-2 split of Portable Hole and Apparition. We've also got 2 copies of Rest in Peace. So this is obviously here is Graveyard Hate, going to be good against stuff like Phoenix and Kethis combo. But it's also really good against the Trapfinder Traveler decks, because if you can get Rest in Peace in play before the opponent sacrifices their Trapfinder, it basically just stops them comboing off, because they need to sacrifice Trapfinder to get the 0 mana Traveler. So if you Rest in Peace before that, they're basically either forced to Tutor for Feed the Swarm if they're running that, which is really slow, or just use their plan B, whether that's, you know, Flesh Gorger or Khan, whichever build you're running. And in general, that's going to be way too slow if you have a decent hand as well. You know, if you can get Rest in Peace in play, it just slows them down, forces them to play their plan B, and then buys you time. Because the other good thing about this deck in that matchup is that if you can combo off before them, they're really going to struggle to beat you, because in your turn you can usually get, you know, over 100 scroll tokens in play if you go to the 5-minute time limit, whereas the opponent isn't going to be able to get past that. You know, they're not going to be able to get Dominating Vampires and steal all the squirrels. It's just way too slow. So in general, if you can get your combo off before theirs, you're going to win. And Rest in Peace really helps to slow them down, whilst obviously being good in other graveyard matchups as well. And we've got 2 copies of Anointed Peacekeeper, so this is a good card against control. In general, I prefer Elite Spellbinder to this, because with Elite Spellbinder, you permanently tax their card, even if it gets killed, and it has flying, so it can't be blocked by stuff like the Wandering Emperor tokens. The main reason I've gone for Anointed Peacekeeper over Elite Spellbinder is because this is another card that is good against the Trapfinder deck, because if you can get this into play and name Ominous Traveler, again, it basically just stops them comboing off. Now, this is much less reliable than Rest in Peace, because they do run a decent amount of interaction. If they have a Fatal Push or a Claim the Firstborn, they'll just be able to kill it straight away. But like I said, it's a pure race in that matchup. You're just trying to combo off before them. So just getting this into play can often just slow them down by a turn or two, which can often just make the difference between winning and losing. On a similar note, we've also got Rule of Law. So this is a card that is very targeted towards the Trapfinder deck, because I definitely see it as the deck to beat. And I think this is probably one of the best hate cards against that deck. So if you've not seen this before, 3 mana enchantment, each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. So same thing with Rest in Peace. It basically just completely stops them comboing off and forces them to rely on Flesh Gorger or Khan or whatever their backup plan is. And it obviously does, you know, it is going to limit you a tiny bit, but considering you have stuff like Collector's Company, Kyler's Reconstruction, you're generally not going to be casting more than 1 spell each turn. Or it's going to hurt them a lot more than it hurts you. And there are also some other matchups where this is going to be good as well. You know, this can be good against Phoenix to stop them getting the Phoenixes back. It can be good against Kethis combo to stop them comboing off. So Rule of Law, mainly here for the Trapfinder decks, but it does have some other applications as well. And we've got 2 copies of Fade from History. So this is predominantly here as just a hate card for the artifact decks, whether that's Affinity or Thopters. Basically just sweeps their board. It's like the new green Shatterstorm essentially, and every time I've resolved this against the Affinity or Thopters deck, I've ended up winning. So this is just a really great trump card in that matchup. And then finally, we've got 2 copies of Ajani Sleeper Agent. So this is here predominantly for the control decks, or in general just decks that are likely to be bringing in sweepers against you post sideboard, because this survives stuff like Divine Purge and Farewell. The +1 gains you card advantage every single turn, which is really sick. And then once you hit the ultimate, you basically just beat the opponent by just playing creatures and giving them poison counters. So I really like Ajani against the control decks. In general, I think 3 mana Planeswalkers are the way to go in that sort of matchup, because if you're on the play, you can sneak them underneath Archmage's Charm, which is really huge. And like I said, the best cards in that matchup against you are the sweepers, you know, Supreme Verdict, Divine Purge, Farewell. And this being able to dodge that whilst accruing value and threatening the ultimate really helps to give you an edge in what is probably the worst matchup for this deck. Just quickly editing in something that I forgot to say. So I've just been watching the matches back that I've got coming up in a bit. And in at least one of them, I'm using an old sideboard where I have 4 Anointed Peacekeeper. I ended up changing that because I felt like Peacekeeper is good in both matchups, but not great. Whereas Rule of Law is really sick against Trapfinder and Ajani is really sick against Control. So I ended up going up to 2 copies of each. I still like Peacekeeper because it is a card that is decent in both matchups, and you also need to keep your creature count fairly high. You know, you can't run too many Rule of Law or Ajani's without hurting your collected company hits, for example, and it is good in both matchups. And also I realised that across all the 5 matches that I've got coming up that I managed to record, I only cast Kyler's Reconstructions once, which doesn't really like give you a good idea of how good this card has been in testing, especially against, you know, I didn't manage to record any matches against Rakdos midrange, for example, where this card is at its best. So just wanted to say that the card's been testing really well, even though you only get to see it in action once across all 5 matches. So anyway, back to the video. So anyway, that's the deck. Like I've said, I've had so much fun with this. I really like playing this deck in general, and I think Kyler's Reconstruction has definitely helped iron out a lot of issues, as well as there being some decent sideboard guards that help against a lot of the top decks right now. So next time I've got some gameplay. I've just got 5 matches that I was playing with this deck so you guys can see in action. If you've got any questions about the deck at all, drop me a comment below, and I hope you enjoy the gameplay. Big up. Okay, sweet. Here we go. Okay, so we're going second tier. And yeah, sorry, you have to excuse my voice. I've got a pretty bad cold at the moment, so my voice is a bit shot. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, can't keep a 1-lander even on the draw. You know, we would love to swap out a couple of these cards for lands. It'd be sick. Okay, I mean, this isn't amazing, but I think for a 6 we have to keep this. You know, we got company and Kyler, so as long as we can keep hitting lands here. And this, you know, this sort of hand highlights why we want to run a high land count, because you will have some hands with company and Reconstruction, and you would just want to make sure that you keep drawing lands. Oh, wow, Llanowar Tribe. Okay, Prosperous Innkeeper is a really sick draw here, because that enables us to cast company next turn, potentially threaten the combo straight away. Yeah, not sure what the opponents are. Maybe they're on Elves, although Elves wouldn't normally run Llanowar Tribe. Maybe they're on Green Ramp. Okay, yeah, they're definitely on a ramp strategy. Oh, wow. They have main deck Coating and Karn. Oh my god, okay. I think we might just lose here then, right? Because we can't activate the treasure token because Karn shuts it off. And they're just going to be, every single turn now, they're just going to be stone running one of our lands. We're not going to be able to kill the Karn because we get it down to 4. Loyalty, and then they're just going to chump block, or they're just going to block with the Llanowar Tribe and the Elves. Yeah, okay. Wow. I mean, we were on the draw and the opponent had kind of the nut start here. I think if we'd been on the play, we probably could have resolved this company. Well, we would have resolved the company before Karn came down, and then this game would have been completely different, but yikes. Yeah, I'm just going to scoop. That's pretty unfortunate, though, because we were drawing lands. We could have gone company into Reconstruction if they hadn't had that. So we definitely want the Peacekeepers here just to keep them off their Planeswalkers. I think I'm going to cut the Reconstructions here just to make room for the Peacekeepers. And I might bring in some portable holes just to deal with their Llanowar Elves and stuff, just to slow them down a little bit. And I also, generally, if I cut the Reconstructions, which I do in a decent number of matchups, I usually go down a land as well, because going up to 25 lands is mainly a consideration to Reconstruction. So when you are sideboarding it out, you know, you can probably just afford to go back down to 24, especially when you're going second. I mean, we're obviously going first here, but with only collected company at the top of the deck, you are lowering the curve a fair amount. Okay, this looks decent. You know, we got Soul Warden into Heliod. Soul Warden's going to be triggering off all the opponent's creatures as well, which is obviously sick. I mean, we have a lot of really, you know, potentially really good draws here. If we draw Voice of the Blessed or Treadasar on turn 2, that's a sick curve out. If we draw Scurryoak, we have the combo. If we draw Company, that's obviously sick as well. If we draw the Anointed Peacekeeper, that's going to slow the opponent down a lot. So even though we don't have everything assembled, I think this hand has pretty high upside, pretty high potential draws. We already have all the lands we need as well. So I'm going to run out the Soul Warden on turn 1 here just to gain a bit of life off them playing creatures. See if they've got a turn 1 Llanowar Elves. Okay, yeah, we've got the Mystics, sure. Okay, so I don't think there's anything mono green can really run to punish us for running out all the life gain enablers here, so I'm just going to run them both out. And now we're only 1 white pip away from being able to turn Heliod into a creature. Now, we could have attacked with the Soul Warden. They probably wouldn't have blocked, but, you know, there's always a potential that they have a hand where they have, you know, maybe like 2 more Elvish Mystics or something, and I don't actually want to lose the Soul Warden. I don't think getting in for 1 damage is really going to make much of a difference here. Okay, Peacekeeper's a great draw here. Just trying to think which is the best to play. I think I'm going to go for Helioak here because if they have Karn into Liquid Metal Coating again, we'll at least have Helioak in play to start putting counters on stuff. Now, that might be a mistake. Maybe it makes more sense to get the Peacekeeper in play, but I like getting Helioak into play here just so we start getting counters on stuff when they start playing creatures. Because I want stuff to be able to attack Karn if they do play it, if that makes sense. Whereas I guess if we go Peacekeeper, we can name Karn to stop them. But then if they have like a Nissa as well, then we're not in a great situation. So I think I like going for Helioak here just so we can start presenting more powerful threats in play off the counters to be able to attack down their Planeswalkers. Because I imagine they're playing like a Nissa Karn deck here, especially now we've seen Settle the Wilds as well. So I imagine they've built their deck in such a way that they're tutoring stuff off Settle the Wilds. And we saw last game that their 4-drop was Karn, so I have to imagine they've got Karn in hand. And we'd be pretty happy for them to play that right now because we can just attack it down. Now, the opponent doesn't know that. They might think that they could maybe go Karn and plus, but they can see that we're already like 1 white pip away from being able to turn Helioak into a creature, so it would be very risky, but I guess they could just go Karn. Okay, so they do play it. I guess they could just go Karn minus and then fetch something for next turn. So how much mana have they got? They got 3/4. They got 8 mana. That's pretty scary. They could get like a Cityscape Leveler or Portal to Phyrexia if they have that in the wish board. Yeah, pretty scary. I mean, thankfully we can just attack down the Karn. Okay, they've got Godfarrow's statue. Oh, okay. Collected Company's a nice draw here. So I was set on going for Peacekeeper, but I like going for Company here just because I feel like, you know, it's going to apply so much pressure if we get a good hit, and that is a pretty sick hit. Obviously, it would have been perfect if we hit the Scurryoak. We would have just won on the spot here, but... So here, I think I'm going to definitely buff one of my life gain enablers to 3 power so that it can cleanly attack down Karn. And then I think I want to try and buff my other creatures so that they can attack past the Llanowar tribe. I think that's the priority, so... Got one of these to 3. I'm going to buff... Oh, okay. Do we want Voice of the Blessed? Potentially want Voice of the Blessed. Although, I don't know. Probably want to look for Scurryoak at this point. We are getting a lot of Scries here. Okay, we can bottom that. Because even if they play the God... Oh, there it is. Sweet. Even if they play the Godfarrow statue, we're killing Karn here, which then give us access to the treasure token. So we can still cast Scurryoak next turn, even if they have the Godfarrow statue in play, right? So here we can just attack the Karn with the 3 power creature and then just attack them with everything else. Puts them down to 8. And it is kind of scary here because they do have the mana for something like Ugin. And if they Ugin us, I think we probably just lose, which is why I wanted to dig for the Scurryoak, because if they don't have Ugin exactly this turn, we can just win on the spot next turn. Whereas, say we just go for like a Voice of the Blessed or something, they could have like a, you know, they could find a way to get themselves back in the game. Okay, so going second here, I think I'm going to prioritize Portable Hole, just because I want to be able to kill Elvish Mystic and Llanowar Elves before they start ramping. So I'm going to probably just go up to Portable Hole, and then just trying to think what else we want to cut here. I think we can probably cut a Trelisara and an Innkeeper here. You know, Trelisara being legendary makes it a fairly easy cut, and I think Innkeeper is definitely the weakest life gain enabler because it's just more expensive. You know, Innkeeper is best when you obviously have Kyler's Reconstruction in the deck, and we've boarded that out. So I think the sideboarding plan makes sense here. But yeah, it's obviously going to be much trickier on the draw here, especially if they have a fast start with Karn again. I mean, if I could swap one of these lands for something else, then I would be really tempted with this hand, because we do have a turn 3 Collected Company, and we have a lot of lands as well, which might help if they are playing more of like a Ponza style thing. So I'm going to risk this. Okay, sick. We drew a 1-drop. Perfect. But yeah, turn 3 Collected Company. I feel like we need to just get off to the races here, and turn 3 Collected Company is pretty good. Okay, no play on turn 1 or 2 is sick to see. Like, this hand was definitely a risky keep. It looks like we're getting paid off for it. Okay, there is the Llanowar tribe. I think we're just going to run out the company here, see what we hit. Oh, okay, Peacekeeper's a nice one. Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, I think we have to name Nissa here, right? Because if they get Nissa into play, then they can just Ulamog the following turn. And we can probably attack down Khan fairly easily, especially if it minuses. Whereas Nissa, you know, Nissa is an issue. So we'll just pass here. And I mean, they can cast the Nissa, but they can't activate it. So they're probably just going to go for the Khan here. Oh, no. Opponent didn't realise that Peacekeeper shuts off the activated abilities as well. So that's obviously a mistake from the opponent there. But, I mean, their other option is play Khan minus for something else. I still don't think they'd be in a great spot there either. They would have to try and position it so they could play Khan, get something to defend the Nissa, because they need to be able to, you know, get some blockers in the way. So we'll just attack down the Nissa here and attack them directly. I am kind of scary because they are kind of getting close to just being able to hardcast the Ulamog if they keep drawing lands here, because they're already at 8 mana. All they need is 2 more land drops. And they, you know, they probably have, or they might have lands in the sideboard from Khan, so they could go Khan minus, get like a Darksteel Citadel or something. Okay, so they do cast the Khan, and they do minus. What they're going to get here. So how much mana have they got again? 9. Oh, wow. Okay, portal to... They do have the portal. So, I think we have to kill the Khan here. We can't let them get another card. And then I'm going to go all face with the others, because this looks like an all-out attack. I want to bait them into blocking here. Oh, perfect. If they block, we can Iganjo the Llanowar tribe, and now they're nowhere near casting anything. If I was in the opponent's position, I would probably block there as well, because the only likely thing that you're going to get blown out there is the one of Iganjo, but, you know, they got blown out by it. And we have the Boseiju here as well, so even if they do manage to cast the portal to Phyrexia, we can kill it before they start reanimating anything, which is really nice. Okay, so they can't... They get Coating. I mean, that's a bit of a surprise. I'm not sure why they... What can they do with Coating here? You know, Coating is only really good if they have ways to kill artifacts, right? Either way, we'll just attack down the Khan here with the Peacekeeper, and then attack them with everything else. And they can Planewide Celebration if they draw land off the top, which can put a bunch of tokens in play. So this game, if they draw land off the top, is going to be tough, I think. So we put them down to 8. So I think this draw step's going to be huge. If they draw land, they can just put a bunch of tokens in play, and we might be in trouble. Okay, they didn't draw land, they drew Garruk. I think that should be fine, right? If they minus here, we get 2 Soul Warden triggers, we get to scry for our draw step. Okay, Voice of the Blessed. I think that's you know, we've only got 1 more scry, and I think that's pretty good to keep at the top. So opponent has I guess they have priority from the liquid metal coating. I was trying to think what else they could have that was causing that. And now we can basically just force them to block the Trelisara here, because it's going to have over 8 power, obviously. Okay, so opponent passes it back. We'll just play the Voice of the Blessed here. And then we get to scry for the next draw step as well. Okay, another Peacekeeper's pretty nice. Okay, opponent just scoops it up. Sweet, we got there. Okay, sweet, so we're going first here. And yeah, this hand looks great. You know, turn 1 Soul Warden into turn 2 Trelisara is really good start against a ton of decks, especially if the opponent's playing creatures. It's just going to get us a ton of free scries and counters on the Trelisara. And with hands like this where we want to keep hitting land drops as well, the initial scries are so good, especially if the opponent plays a creature triggers the Soul Ward and then gives us an additional scry off the Trelasara. So yeah, with this hand, we just want to keep hitting lands more than anything else. Like, obviously finding a Heliod would be nice as well, but especially with the Kyler's Reconstruction, we just need to keep hitting lands, because the Kyler's Reconstruction is going to be very good at helping us find Heliod in the first place. So opponent Spire of Industry into Retrofitter Foundry, just going to be Affinity here. I have to imagine blue-white, but I have seen some other variants, so we'll see what the opponent does here. We do have to be very wary of Metallic Rebuke, obviously. So if the opponent passes here, it's like the most obvious Metallic Rebuke ever. Okay, the Esper Sentinel. If they still pass, they could still very well have Metallic Rebuke, because they still have they have enough artifacts to pay for the. I always forget what it's called. I always think it's called Convoke, but it's not. Either way, I'm just going to play the Innkeeper here. I'm not going to not do anything, and I would rather bait out the Rebuke on an Innkeeper rather than anything else. Okay, they let the Innkeeper resolve. Interesting. So we could go for the second Innkeeper, but then we waste the treasure. I'm not really sure that's worth it, to be honest, especially with a Reconstruction, but I also kind of want to bait out the Metallic Rebuke, but there's a chance they play slower because they have the Rebuke as well, which is also beneficial for us. So if they had mana for the Retrofitter Foundry, then I would probably be more inclined to just jam into the Metallic Rebuke, because otherwise they'll just use their mana on the Foundry anyway. So we're not really getting that much. Although, having said that, them using Foundry with Soul Warden in play is also going to be getting us counters on the Trelasara, so we'll see what they do either way. But I kind of, especially with the Reconstruction hand, I value the treasure here quite highly. Okay, another Reconstruction. I'm just going to slam another Innkeeper here. Gives us another treasure, which means that we could potentially Reconstruction for X equals 3. I still feel like the opponent has to have Metallic Rebuke here. There's no way that they have like such a slow hand. Definitely want to keep lands on top with the Reconstructions in hand here. But yeah, we definitely... Like, I want to bait out the Metallic Rebuke on something else, because the issue with Kyler's Reconstruction in this spot is we'd have to use up treasures in order to maximize the value we get off it. And, if we tap 6 mana and use 2 treasures, the opponent is just going to snap off the Metallic Rebuke. So I'm kind of hoping, if they don't counter anything here, that we just Scurry Oak next turn and they counter that, and then just start committing stuff to the board, and then we probably just win the game off. Reconstruction for X equals 3 is so strong. 7 deep is really, really powerful. So going to attack with the Trelasara here. They might just make a chump blocker with the Retrofitter Foundry, which is fine. I mean, it's a bit annoying because we're not getting any value off it. We already know we want a land, so we're not getting any extra values off the Scribe. But the Trelasara is growing, which isn't nothing. So we'll pass the turn back here. And also, they're not getting... They could have turned that into a Thopter and then into a Servo and then into a Thopter. Okay, so they play a second Retrofitter Foundry. I'm still convinced they must have Rebuke. There's no other way an Affinity hand would develop this slowly if they weren't holding Rebuke here. So I think I'm going to cast Scurry Oak before playing the land for the turn, because that way, we can't pay for the Rebuke mana. If we play Temple Garden untapped, then we can pay for the Rebuke mana. I don't think we want a third Reconstruction. And if we play Temple Garden tapped, we're just telling them I want you to Rebuke here, because we could have paid for it, if that makes sense. So they let the Scurry Oak resolve, which is interesting. I mean, I guess it's not that powerful without Heliod. Maybe they're trying to save their Rebuke for the Heliod, but we can pay for the Rebuke cost with the treasures here, so maybe the opponent doesn't have Rebuke. Maybe they're just bluffing. So they make a Servo here. I'm happy to attack with the Innkeepers now. I don't want to attack with the Warden because we're getting so much extra value off them making the tokens off the Foundry every single turn. But I'm definitely happy to trade with the... If they want to, chump block with the Sentinel and trade this 1/1 for one of our Innkeepers, I'm very happy with that trade. Okay, they make a Thopter. I don't know why. Maybe they're going to just chump block with the Sentinel and keep the Thopter around for next turn. Either way, I'm keeping Voice of the Blessed on top, because if they keep playing slowly, I'm sure they must have Rebuke. And if they do, we kind of punish them for playing Voice of the Blessed, because then we have so much stuff in play that they have to answer. Whereas if we just jam the Reconstruction, we just lose the treasures. So I think I'm just going to go for the Voice of the Blessed next turn, and we get a ton of counters on it straight away. Okay, they Nettle Cyst, sure, that's not too much of an issue. But yeah, Voice of the Blessed, we get 3 triggers immediately because of the Soul Ward and the double Innkeeper, and then we trigger the Evolve on Helioak, which gives us another 3 because of the Squirrel entering play. So the opponent's still holding up Rebuke. I'm just going to jam the Voice of the Blessed here. And then if they do tap out to deal with stuff here, I mean, we'll see what if we scry something good off the Trelisara, we could just Reconstruction for X equals 1. You know, if we hit Heliod off the top, for example, then if the opponent taps out to do anything here, we can just win post, or we can set up the combo post sideboard. So we're digging for Heliod here, basically. If the opponent doesn't do anything with their mana, I think they're just under so much pressure that they're probably just going to lose here anyway, because I guess the only real threatening attacker here is the Trelisara, but this Voice of the Blessed is going to start growing pretty quickly. I guess they might be banking on being able to make tokens off the Retrofitter Foundry just to chump block every single turn, but I think we'll be able to outpace that. Do we want Voice of the Blessed? I mean, I don't mind it, but I think I just want to dig for Heliod here, because even if they don't do anything, you know, if we find Heliod on top, okay, bottom that, then we can Reconstruction for X equals 1 if they do tap out, and if they don't, we can just cast it, hard cast it next turn and combo off anyway, because I think, oh, perfect, there it is. I think the opponent is banking on being able to chump block every single turn, which they could do with 2 Retrofitter Foundries realistically, but we're just going to be able to win the game on the spot if we can combo off here. Now, there's a chance, you know, they could very well have 2 Rebukes considering how slowly they've been playing, but if we Heliod and they Rebuke twice, then we just have Reconstruction anyway that we can use to dig for another one, so I think I still like our spot here. Definitely keep the Heliod on top, see if the opponent does tap out for anything. Okay, it doesn't look like they do, so we'll just pass back here. And then next turn, because we have the treasures, we can Heliod and pay for 1 Rebuke. Okay, they have Thought Monitor. I mean, it's one of these things where if I could just glance at my opponent's hand and see they don't have Rebuke, they just scoop it up. Then we could have just fired off a Reconstruction ages ago. Sideboarding here, definitely want the 2 Fade from History, and I definitely want the Apparitions as well. Gonna trim the Reconstruction to make room for it, and then could trim a land because we're cutting the Reconstruction, but honestly, hitting our 4th land on curve for both Collected Company and Fade from History is really important. You know, being able to cast Fade from History before they get a Thought Monitor in play, for example, is really huge, especially if you can go like turn 2 Innkeeper, turn 3 Fade from History, going second, just get rid of like Portable Holes and Moonsnare prototypes and all that sort of stuff is really, really powerful. But yeah, overall, this matchup has definitely felt pretty favoured. Even like pre-sideboard, they don't really have good ways to stop the combo. All of their interaction is sorcery speed. All of it is, you know, Portable Hole, Glass Casket sort of thing. And then post-sideboard, Fade from History just destroys all that sort of stuff. So if I could swap one of these lands for another good card, this would be a keep, I think, especially with the Boseiju here. But I don't know. If we draw another land, especially, you know, with 25 lands, it's not that unlikely. So I think I'm going to have to ship this one. Okay, this one's fine. You know, Lunark Veteran into Trelisara on 2 is really nice. And then, you know, we've also got Voice of the Blessed and Innkeeper as well. So very, you know, pretty fast start from us here. Okay, opponent leads on a Retrofit Foundry. We'll just lead on Lunark Veteran. See what the opponent does here. I think we almost always go for the Trelisara here. Just the scries are so important in the early game. But I guess it depends on what we draw. Ooh, okay, Fade from History is nice. So, not sure. Think since we already have the land, I'm just going to go for the Voice of the Blessed because, you know, we already have the land for next turn, and I feel like they have Rebuke. I would rather they Rebuke the Voice of the Blessed. I feel like the Trelisara is more valuable here, so I'm going to run out the Voice of the Blessed. And if they do have Rebuke, I imagine they snap it off here, right? They probably have to. Yeah, okay. So they do rebuke the Voice of the Blessed. That's fine. Obviously not going to attack because they're just going to turn this into a 4/4. And yeah, I guess now we're just trying to set up Fade from History. If we can get Fade from History off before they start getting like Thought Monitors in play, it's going to be a complete blowout. Okay, they play Otawara. Trying to think, I mean, if they do keep up Rebuke, I'm not sure how we play our next turn out. Maybe just Innkeeper or maybe just Trelisara. I feel like going for both, potentially losing the treasure and not getting a Scry is very risky. Okay, opponent goes for Moonsnare Prototype. I'm going to attack with the 4/4. Definitely not going to block. So if they pass here, they could very well have another Rebuke. Okay, we did draw the 4th land, which is nice. So I'm going to lead on the Innkeeper here. And then I'm just going to slam the Trelisara here, because since we've already got the 4th land, I would rather they rebuke the Trelisara and then we get to resolve Fade from History than the other way around. So they obviously have something. Okay, it resolves. So I guess they're just holding up Retrofitter Foundry. So what could they have in their hand? Maybe they've got Thought Monitor in hand? Okay, definitely bottom of the land. We already have 4. We already have more than enough. So they got what? 4 artifacts in play. Oh, okay. Company's a sick one. So now we have a play to follow up Fade from History if we can resolve it. So I have to assume the opponent would have used Metallic Rebuke there if they had it on the Trelisara. So unless they drew Rebuke for turn, I think we're good to go for Fade from History next turn, and it will be pretty good. Oh, wow. Okay, so they portable hold the Trelisara, so I've got to hope that they didn't Rebuke because they didn't have it rather than they had a portable hold. But if this Fade from History resolves, not only do we kill everything they've got, but we also get the Trelisara back, which would be pretty sick. And then we've also got Collected Company to follow that up with as well, so... Okay, the last card's Khan. Want them to minus here, obviously. Okay, they do minus 6/6. So now we get to Fade from History and just get rid of everything. They do get a bear, but it's whatever. The Trelisara is already going to grow. We already have Collected Company on top as well. The Scries from Trelisara have been so clutch this game. I mean, they always are in general anyway. Okay, definitely don't want the extra Trelisara here. Let me just ship it back. So it'll be interesting to see what the opponent does with the Khan here. Like, minusing doesn't really do all that much. Okay, they do plus. I'll definitely give them the land rather than the prototype, because they can channel the prototype to get rid of the Trelisara. Play out the Spire of Industry. I mean, I really hope they haven't drawn another counter spell. I think I'm just... I don't know whether to fire this Coco off now or wait. I think I'm going to attack first, because it looks like they've got something from the priority. So I'm going to attack Khan down to see what they do. And then if they don't do anything, I might just Coco during their upkeep. Okay, they block with the 2/2. So Khan's dying here. Oh, they have prototype. Okay. Interesting. So I think we top that and then company. Maybe we should have companied main phase. Because if they have Rebuke, it doesn't really make a difference. Okay, so we definitely want Trelisara back here, and then probably Apparition just kills the Khan anyway. I mean, I'm kind of glad with how that played out, because they kind of wasted the Moonsnare prototype. I guess we would have got another creature off the company anyway, but I think things panned out quite well for us there. Okay, definitely don't want Trelisara. I don't think, we want something better than Innkeeper as well. But yeah, opponent's in a pretty rough spot here. They need to top deck pretty well to get back into this, I think. We have a lot of potentially good top decks. Oh no, come on. Okay, that's a very good top deck for them, because that gets rid of our biggest threat. And now we're kind of at parity. It's down to top decks. And we've lost our scrying machine as well. Okay, I'm surprised they attack though. We're going to win this race as things stand. Going to set stop during the opponent's turn just to represent collected company. I don't want them to just think that they can do everything and we don't have any response. Wow, okay. Strong lands kind of sucks here. Still going to play them out because I guess we don't have Reconstruction in the deck anymore, so that doesn't really matter. Normally, if you have Reconstruction in the deck, like holding on to one land is fine, but if you have multiple lands in hand, you should always cast them out. Okay, opponents stopped attacking here, which makes sense, I guess. They realised they were losing that race. Going to slam the Soul Warden here, and then, we don't really get punished by Affinity for committing any more to the board. All their target's single target removal, so... Oh, sorry, all of their removal is single target, so... Just got to hope to draw better than the opponent here, I guess. But to be honest, we do have a lot of good draws. Oh, wow, Shadow Spear's pretty sick here, to be honest. That's going to help them race even faster, because we can't really block with the Apparition. If we block with the Apparition, we give them a 4/4, then they just equip the 4/4 with the Shadow Spear, so... I think we just have to let this through and just hope that we draw something good. I mean, assuming they attack, they might hold it back. Okay, they do attack. That's probably the better play, to be honest. Okay, so this is a bit of an annoying spot. Oh, okay, sick. Perfect. So I'm just going to fire this off now. Even if they have Rebuke, they can't counter. I don't think they'd have brought in David's veto against me. Or, okay. I mean, we only hit one creature, but Heliod's a pretty good one. So we definitely want to buff on, at least one of our creatures to a 4/4, because we want to be able to, if they hold the 3/3 back to block next turn, we want to be able to attack and then give a 4/4 lifelink. Or, I mean a 3/3, sorry. So we'll buff the Apparition, attack in. To be honest, maybe we should have put both counters on the Apparition, but... I'm worried that they have, the way I see it, I'm worried about Portable Hull and Glass Casket. I'm more worried about, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Basically, I want to set up so that we can attack and give a creature lifelink next turn. So this is why I'm making this a 4/4. I'm worried if they Glass Casket, they'll be in a position where Heliod isn't a creature anymore. They'll have a 4/4 and a 3/3, but I think they're more likely to have Portable Hull. I guess they've already used one already, so maybe that's wrong. But... okay, opponent just scoops it up. Maybe I was overthinking that. But yeah, we got there. Nice. Okay, so we're going first here. And yeah, this looks good. No life gain enabler on turn 1, but, try to start on 2. On the draw, maybe this is too slow, but on the play, I think this is fine. Try to start into Helioak. If we draw something else to play, then we can play that, and then hopefully Reconstruction, you generally don't want to play X=1 if you can avoid it, or you really need to. Sometimes, actually, there have been some spots where I have, I've got like a Helioak and, or like a Heliod and a Soul Warden in hand. You can go Soul Warden and then Reconstruction for X=1 to try and find the Helioak, because Reconstruction looks 7 deep regardless of what X is. Okay, so opponent is Mystic into Fable, which is a pretty good start for them, to be honest. Turn 2 Fable's pretty sick. We did draw the Soul Warden. I'm going to play out the Soul Warden rather than the Helioak because I want to start getting the Treadasara triggers if possible. If the opponent commits more creatures to the battlefield, we're going to get more scry value off the Treadasara, so that's the priority here. Even though it is less mana efficient, I feel like the value we're hopefully going to get off scries here is much more important, and then we can always just go Helioak next turn. Okay, opponent just Bone Crushes the Treadasara, which is a bit unfortunate. Maybe we should have just gone for the Helioak instead. Hard to say. Okay, I mean, now it's fine. Now we can make a mana efficient play this turn anyway, so it didn't end up mattering, but yeah, maybe we're supposed to just make the mana efficient play there, but if they don't have the Bone Crusher Giant, it puts them in a really awkward position where they, if they commit anything else to the board, we just get counters and scries. Okay, so the Reflection flips, they get the loot off the second Fable. Bit of an awkward spot here because... okay, so they're playing Coating, so it's like another Ponza style deck, I guess. But yeah, if they attack with both of these, they're getting so much extra mana every time. We don't have good blockers, so we're just going to have to let it through and then just hope that we get a good Reconstruction next turn, I guess. To be honest, if we hit Heliod, we basically just win on the spot. If we hit Heliod anything else, okay. So they stomp the Helioak. So that does shut off a few of our outs. But we still get to Reconstruction for X equals 2 here. See what we hit. Okay, I mean, only got 2 options, but that's not too bad. Assuming they don't have the 3rd Bone Crusher or like a Braid or something. I assume they're running a Braid in the main deck if they have... Oh, they did have the 3rd Bone Crusher, okay. So now we're kind of running on empty, but it's going to be, like, regardless of what your hand is, it's going to be hard to beat triple Bone Crusher Giant when all of your creatures have 2 toughness and you don't have a Heliod. So we'll just run it back here, but to be honest, with our current board state, as long as the opponent's not running something weird like Goblin Chainwhirler, we have a lot of good top decks. You know, Heliod's great, Voice of the Best or Trelisara are great. You know, another Reconstruction or Company is great as well. You know, this is the sort of spot where I'm very glad that I've got 4 Reconstruction in the deck, because if we draw one, it's going to be so good. So the good thing about getting so much incidental life gain is we don't have to worry about chump blocking for a while. Okay, so opponent is running a Braid, that makes sense. I don't think you can really run main deck Liquid Metal Coating without some artifact removal. And a Braid seems like the best option for sure, because... oh, I guess they can go after our lands here. They maybe they'll go. Maybe they'll prioritize killing Soul Warden. Yeah, okay, they do. Sure. But yeah, we've still got some pretty decent top decks. So I'm, you know, even though we are behind, we have a lot of good ways to get back into it. Okay, Company is sick, obviously. Wow, I think we just have to go for the combo here, right? They could very well have another removal spell, but it needs to be 1 mana. Do they have it? Okay. They'll let us... Oh, I guess they were just tapping to pass priority, sure. So, I mean, we can just... Since we have 3 life gain enablers in play, we can just buff 3 of our creatures to 18/18 and just attack. So, if the opponent makes us play it out... Oh yeah, a few tips as well while I'm comboing. You want to make sure under options that you have options gameplay, you want to have auto-order triggered abilities ticked. The only time you ever really want to untick that when you're playing this deck is if you have Skyclave Apparition in and you're going to kill something like a Rampaging Ferocidon. But I think Arena orders the triggers automatically the correct way now anyway. So you might as well just always play with auto-order triggered abilities ticked, because it just saves so much time when you're comboing. Another thing is you want to use the spacebar to speed things up as well. If you have one hand on your mouse, one hand on your spacebar, every time you put a counter on the Helioak, it will come up asking you to auto-pay. You can just press the spacebar rather than having to move your mouse down to the bottom right, which saves a lot of time. And then the third thing as well that's worth noting is that after a certain amount, I still don't understand why this happens, but after a certain amount of loops, Arena will like ask you to resolve every step of it, almost like you've gone into full control mode. And if that happens... Oh, I thought it was happening now for a second, but it looks like the opponent's stalling for a sec. But yeah, if that happens where it starts asking you to click resolve on everything, you can get around that if you just go into full control mode and then... you know, click resolve and then go out of full control, it will just skip back to as things were before, just back to normal speed. I still don't understand what happens. Maybe it's to, like, people who would... Yeah, I still don't get it, but that's always happened to me when I'm comboing off for some reason. But yeah, if the opponent makes me play it out here, I guess we're almost at 18 anyway, but in, you know, if I have to combo off again later or in another game, I might just skip it, because there's not really too much exciting stuff to say here. Like here we shouldn't have to do much more, hopefully, because they've only got 1 blocker. All we need to do is make the Soul Warden and the Veteran 18/18s. If the opponent had any interaction, they would have used it on the Helioak, so I'm not worried about that. You know, if we wanted to be completely safe, we could also turn the Prosperous Innkeeper into an 18/18, but they've only got 1 blocker, so don't really need to. So just going to put the last few counters on the Innkeeper so that we don't keep triggering the Helioak. And then we can just attack him for lethal here. Yeah, okay, sweet. So, Gruul, kind of like Ponza. I think I like Portable Hole, especially going second. I like they seem more built around value cards like Fable, so I'm just going to sideboard in the Portable Holes. Like, Portable Hole Apparition in place of the Kaya's Reconstruction is how I normally board against the aggro decks, but I think it is also suitable here because Portable Hole is going to be very good at slowing down the Llanowar Elves start. I assume if they're Gruul and they're running Liquid Metal Coating that they might also be running Stone Rain, so being able to slow that down is important. And then Apparition seems good against stuff like Fable of the Mirror Breaker as well, so can't keep that hand. Oh, this one's pretty sick though. Just got to hope the opponent doesn't have Stone Rain on turn 2. If they don't, we can go Soul Warden into Trenosara, scry for some lands, and then we've just got the combo here as well. I guess, well, I mean, that relies on the Soul Warden surviving. If I didn't have the Trenosara, I think I would honestly hold on to the Soul Warden here. Because, you know, we could just do nothing until turn 3, then play the Helioak on turn 3, and then, assuming we have our 4th land, we can just play Soul Warden and the Scurryoak the same turn to punish the opponent for ever tapping out. Okay, we've already got the 4th land, even though they are playing... I have to imagine they're playing Land Destruction. That's the sort of vibes I'm getting off with like Liquid Metal Coating and stuff, right? I assume they want to go Liquid Metal Coating, abrade your land sort of deal. But yeah, if they... Oh, speaking of... But yeah, if they don't have ways to kill... Wait, what have they targeted? Oh, they got Ancient Grudge, sure. So, I mean, I'm glad they didn't kill our land. I was kind of surprised they didn't kill our land. I guess with Soul Warden in play, they... What am I saying? Oh yeah, we would just be scrying a bunch for every creature that entered the battlefield otherwise. So, I mean, I have to assume they probably just kill the Soul Warden here, right? They can just coating the Soul Warden. Oh, I guess they can just Bone Crusher it. But we're in a point now where... Oh wait, Ancient Grudge is an instant, isn't it? I was going to say, we're at a point now where... Oh, okay, they just go after the Brushland, sure. Okay, so assuming they have no more artifact removal, if we draw another life gain enabler, we can just combo. And I think I'm probably going to hold on to this Scurryoak until I can do both in the same turn. I don't want to give them a target for their removal. I want to punish them for tapping out. So yeah, just going to run out the Trenosara here. And then hold on to the Scurryoak to hopefully play the same turn as a Soul Warden, a Veteran, or an Innkeeper. Okay, so opponent loots off the Fable. Play a Bone Crusher. So they are starting to apply a lot of pressure, and our life total isn't as padded as it was last game, so... Got to hope to draw a life gain enabler pretty soon. I think I'm fine to let this one through, though. Go down to 9. But we'll probably have to chump block next turn. Okay. So this is a bit of an issue because we might just have to play the Scurryoak out here as a blocker because they can copy the Bone Crusher Diamond. Portable Hole doesn't stop Fable or anything, so I guess we might as well target the Liquid Metal Coating, run out of the Scurryoak here. Maybe we're supposed to target one of the 2/2s here. Maybe that was a bit greedy of me. Because... The 2 Bone Crushers alone is 8 power. Oh, wow, okay. Now they can just copy the Gargaroth. Yikes, okay, yeah. So we lose this one. So that's about it. I mean, this is potentially the sort of matchup where I would quite like to be able to keep the Reconstructions in, where it's very grindy, there's a lot of removal being played by the opponent, and a lot of it can come down to top decks. But I feel because they're running Land Destruction, Reconstruction isn't as reliable, and we have to run Interaction for to slow them down. If they weren't running Land Destruction, this is the sort of matchup where Reconstruction is really sick. You know, if they were playing like more of a, you know, if they just weren't playing Land Destruction, if they're playing like Red Green or just regular Rakdos mid range, that's the sort of matchup where Reconstruction is at its best, and that's the sort of. I feel like that was the sort of matchup where the old builds of Helioak really, really struggled. Right. Whereas this build, you know, since they're running the land destruction stuff, they don't have as many ways to snowball the game. And they don't have as much disruption, you know. They've got no Thoughtseize, no discard spells or anything like that. So it's a bit easier for us to set up our game plan. So even though we don't have a turn 1 life gain enabler, I still think this hand's a decent keep. Wow, no turn 1 elf is very good to see. I guess the opponent did mull. But yeah, I'm going to run out the Trelisara first here because we have the second one. If they use a removal spell on it, we're actually pretty happy about that. Okay, interesting. So the forest means that we can't go Lunark Veteran and Voice of the Blessed, which is a little bit annoying. We could run out the Helioak, but I'm not sure. I think, well, I'll attack first. Oh, perfect. They kill the Trelisara. So now we can just go Lunark Veteran into Trelisara, scry for a land. That's perfect. I'm going to scry anything that isn't a land. Okay, there's a land. Perfect. So now we have enough mana for company as well. Okay, they've got liquid metal coating. So I think we're just slamming the company here. They could be running like a sweeper, but... Oh, I was going to say, if we hit any creatures here, we can put Trelisara out of range of like something like Brotherhood's End or Anger of the Gods. Now they still can sweep us here, but if they don't kill the veteran, we get to combo off with the Helioak next turn. So they need to kill the veteran here. Okay. So, I think I'm going to lead on the Voice of the Blessed just to see what they do. I would quite like them to kill the Trelisara if possible. I mean, I think at this point I'm just pretty happy to slam the Helioak anyway. Because if they kill the Helioak, we're attacking in for what? What's that, like 14? What have they targeted? Okay, so they kill the veteran, which means that Heliod stops becoming a creature. But I mean, we still get him for 5 here. Now the Trelisara is out of range of Brotherhood's End. We can still manually give stuff lifelink off the Heliod and start putting counters on the Helioak anyway, which is still pretty reasonable. And they're already staring down 9 damage, so... Okay, so they're coating... What have they picked? I think that they've highlighted Trelisara here. Okay, yikes. So they've got another Ancient Grudge. So what to do here? I mean, we could play the veteran from the graveyard, but we could just attack with both, give both lifelink, and start putting counters on the Helioak to go wide. And then that plays kind of around the Ancient Grudges slightly better. I think I prefer that. Give both creatures lifelink here. If we had 1 more mana, I'd obviously play the veteran as well, because then when they do start destroying stuff with the Ancient Grudges, we get even more Heliod triggers off the Lunark veteran, or the backside of it anyway. So now, I mean, I assume they have to kill either the Voice of the Blessed or the Helioak here. Thankfully, because they don't have double green mana, they can only kill one thing with the Ancient Grudge here. So again, could run out the Helioak here, but I think I just want to keep making 1/1s. You know, they haven't got much stuff to block. If they kill the Helioak, we can still give Voice of the Blessed lifelink. And we have a second Helioak in hand anyway. Okay, so they kill the Voice of the Blessed. Let's see if they block. Okay, they let it through, which is surprising. So I think I'm just going to give 2 things lifelink again, make 2 more squirrel tokens, and now they're down to 2. So, I mean, you know, they need to get blockers in place somehow. Or I guess a sweeper would also do it if they have Brotherhood's End. Oh wow, they got Essica's Chariot, okay. I mean, that still isn't enough, surely? Right? Unless I'm missing something. I mean, either way, I think I'm going to play the veteran out here because... Or the backside of it, because... If they do block our squirrels, we're going to get triggers off that. We can still give the Helioak lifelink. I mean, we win here anyway, right? I'm overthinking this, because they can't block with more than 2 things, so... So we'll just give the Skyoak lifelink and then just attack him for lethal here. Sweet, nice. Okay, so we're going first here. And yeah, this hand looks great. We've got Prosperous Innkeeper on turn 2 into either Voice of the Blessed or Skyoak on turn 3. I probably want to save the treasure for the Kyler's Reconstruction if possible. You know, the really nice thing about Innkeeper into Reconstruction is that you can go for X equals 2 on turn 4, which is nice. You know, kind of just works as like a collected company that digs a card deeper. So I'm going to play the Sunpetal Grove here, and then going to run out the Innkeeper. Okay, so Hallowed Fountain tapped, either going to be Affinity or Blue-White Control if I had to guess. Okay, Hall of Storm Giants into nothing, so almost definitely going to be Blue-White Control, so I'll attack first. Honestly, Control is a tough matchup, and I think in this situation, I don't think we're really beating a sweeper with this hand. Like, obviously we have Kyler's Reconstruction, but like we could save the treasure, but I think I just like max punishing the opponent for not having a sweeper here. You know, especially game 1 where they're not likely to have all of the sweepers in, you know, I assume they have extra ones in the sideboard, so we could have played a little bit slower to the board and tried to save the treasure for the Reconstruction, but if we draw, you know, I really like going for the Voice of the Blessed because we can spew our hand out here a little bit more, and, you know, we get another treasure off the Innkeeper, which was quite lucky off the top, but even if we draw another land, we can still Reconstruction here. I don't think it's worth going for the Skyoak here because then if we don't draw a land, we can only Reconstruction for X equals 1. But now if they have a sweeper, we can just Reconstruction immediately afterwards, get 2 creatures on the board. Okay, sound. The opponent didn't have a sweeper anyway, but I feel like that was the right way to approach that game. So against Control, we want the Peacekeepers and the Ajani for sure. And then I'm going to cut the Reconstruction. Even though Reconstruction is very good game 1, I do feel like post-sideboard, I want to have more targeted stuff for Control. You know, Reconstruction definitely helps improve Control game 1, but I still feel like it's probably the worst matchup for the deck, so I've dedicated stuff in the sideboard for this matchup. And so, yeah, I'm obviously going to bring it in, and I think Reconstruction at sorcery speed, especially post-sideboard when the opponent's likely to have more interaction, I just prefer it this way, basically. So this hand obviously is reliant on the collected company, but having 2 of them is pretty sick. You know, it means we're probably likely to resolve one of them. We can wait until the end of the opponent's turn to fire off one, and then if they have a counter spell, we can just fire off one during our main phase, if we feel that's the right way to do it anyway. Going to bottom a land here because we've already got enough, you know, we've already got enough mana to cast the company, and we've got 2 more draw steps where we could draw lands anyway, so definitely going to bottom the land here. Okay, opponent marches the Soul Warden, that's fine. Oh, okay, Peacekeeper's a nice draw. So, unfortunately, the Sunpetal Grove is going to be entering tapped here, but I feel like it's more important to get Peacekeeper in play than having untapped land for company. Oh, well, they just scoop it up. I mean, they were missing their 3rd land. That makes sense, I guess. Okay, so we're going second here. And can't keep a 1-lander. Got to ship this one back, unfortunately. So opponent's on Gigantha, so my first guesses for that would either be the Trapfinder deck or is it Wizards? I think those are definitely the 2 most popular Gigantha decks right now. And to be honest, I don't actually feel, you know, the raw power of... Okay, this is better, definitely. Yeah, but the raw power of the Trapfinder deck is scary, but we do have a lot of good tools to fight that deck. Oh, well, they're neither by the looks of things. Okay, Kumano faces Kakazan, interesting. So I'm going to go Soul Warden on 1 here. So they're either... Well, I don't know, I'll see what else they play. I guess they could be Wizards, but Kumano is not a regular card that Wizards run. I guess they're running Snow-Covered Mountains as well, so maybe Mono Red? Okay, Static Discharge. So Could be a burn deck, maybe? And we'll have to see more cards before we know for sure. Okay, so they attack. Like, okay, so they're 100% a burn deck. Which, you know, you might think Helioak is a really good matchup against burn because, you know, you're playing a life gain deck versus a burn deck, but it's actually, it's not that simple because all of their burn spells are great removal for all of your creatures. You know, all of your creatures are really small and they run a high density of low damage burn spells, right? So it doesn't line up as well as you might think. Okay, so we know the opponent has a bunch of 2 damage burn spells, so it feels like kind of a waste to run out the Scurryoak here. Had I not drawn the 4th land, I think we would probably force to just play the Scurryoak maybe, but we can just Beseiju the Etching of Kumano here. You know, I wouldn't want to do nothing with my mana, but I also don't want to play Scurryoak out into these 2 burn spells that are face up. So I'm just gonna... Okay, they're firing them off beforehand, which is good. Because they have less information, right? They don't know we're going to kill the Etching of Kumano. So they fire the burn spells off. And I think we're just going to channel the Beseiju when they attack. Now, they will obviously get an extra land, but in a way, I wouldn't actually mind if they tapped out to play a creature here. You know, if they get a land and play a 2-drop, that would then... okay. So I kind of want to slam Company here, but I'm also kind of tempted to just go Lunarch Veteran into Scurryoak and try and bait out some burn spells, because if you just go Company, you know, the rest of our hand outside of Company isn't that great. If we just go Company and we hit like Soul Warden into Voice of the Blessed and they just Flame Blessed Bolt the Soul Warden, we're kind of running on empty. So I would quite like to go Veteran Scurryoak and try and bait out their burn spells on the less impactful stuff, so that when we do go for the Company, this stuff is likely to resolve. Because I think this matchup is easy to win. Okay, Soul Warden. So again, I think I'm just going to go Soul Warden Scurryoak, because they still have 2 cards in hand. I have to assume there's some amount of burn there. If there isn't, we just get to Company next turn anyway. But the way we win this matchup is if we can get a Voice of the Blessed or Trelisara or Heliod going. If we can get them like up to above 4 power, or any creature to above 4 power off Heliod counters or just Voice of the Blessed or Trelisara, then it becomes really hard for them to win. So I'm just trying to set up a window where we can do that, basically. Okay. So they have Soulskull Mage. Still got 2 cards in hand. I still feel like if they're not, you know, if they were creatures, they'd probably play them out. So they have to be burn spells, I imagine. Or at least one of them. Okay, so they Static Discharge the Soul Warden. Okay, and they put it into hand. So now we can cleanly go for the Company. We don't have to worry about getting interrupted. Hold on, what have we got? So I think here... Oh, we just got the combo. But unfortunately, we don't get to... I was just trying to think whether we could actually combo off this turn or not. Oh, wow, we got pretty lucky there. Had they had another burn spell, they could have shut off the combo. But either way, Heliod plus Scurryoak, just giving stuff lifelink manually is fine. So against aggro, pretty simple sideboarding here. Kyler's Reconstruction is probably a bit too slow. Plus, we just want interaction in general. So cut the Reconstruction, bring in the Portable Hold Apparition, and I can cut a land because I'm cutting the Reconstruction. You know, the 25th land is mainly there because of the Reconstruction. So when you board out the Reconstructions, you can trim a land as well. But yeah, this matchup, you've got to play very carefully in this matchup, because it's very easy to just run all your creatures out, get them all hit by burn spells, and then just have nothing left. So I'm just trying to play, you know, a bit more cautiously. So this hand is interesting. I mean, I'm going to keep it. We are obviously, you know, a little bit flooded, but Heliod is huge because Heliod can't be killed by burn spells. So depending on what the opponent does here, I might just not run out the Soul Warden early. Like, I would ideally quite like to get Heliod in play and then just do like a turn where I play like 2 life gain enablers or like 2 or 3 creatures and force them to have 2 or 3 burn spells that turn. Oh, wow, okay. I mean, especially now we've drawn the Scurryoak, I definitely want to, like, even if I wasn't against a burn deck, if I was against a deck that just has some amount of removal, it's often a good idea to hold on to the life gain enablers so you can go Heliod and then life gain enabler into Scurryoak in the same turn. So I'm going to pass it. Maybe we should have played the Innkeeper out there. But they've got a burn spell face up, so I don't really want to risk that. Although, I mean, I feel like we're at a high enough life total now where we can afford to soak up some damage directly. And then if they use their burn spells going face, then they're less likely to have stuff left to stop us comboing off. That's my current game plan anyway. Okay, so we can go Heliod now. And then next turn, I mean, depending on what they do, we can go Soul Warden and Scurryoak if we feel that's safe. We can just go Company. We could go Innkeeper into Scurryoak. We could go... Okay, so they go face with the Static Discharge. Wow, they just go face with the... Oh, come on. They had exact lethal. I mean, I did get punished for not playing the Innkeeper out there. Yeah, to be honest, maybe I should have played the Innkeeper on 2 and just held Warden Scurryoak. But they did have to have a pretty specific sequence of cards there. Like, they needed exactly what they had, basically. So yeah, I don't know. Thinking back after that happened, there maybe isn't too much advantage because if we're going for Scurryoak the turn after Heliod, we can only really go for either Soul Warden or Innkeeper, right? So maybe it was better to play the Innkeeper. And then we also have a treasure lying around so that we could go, after the Heliod turn, we could potentially go, Soul Warden into Lunarch Veteran into Scurryoak. So yeah, looking back on it, that was a misplay on my part. I think I should have just played the Innkeeper on 2. Okay, so can't keep that because it's just a one-lander. This is an interesting hand because we really want the Apparition, but I also really want both Soul Warden's Voice of the Blessed and the third land here as well. So I'm going to put back the Apparition. I'm not 100% sure that's correct, but I really, it'd be very easy to lose this if we miss land drops. And Soul Warden Voice of the Blessed is a sick combo. Interesting. So I'm going to lead by attacking on the Soul Warden here. I have to assume they have a burn spell. And I don't just want to run out of Voice of the Blessed here. So I'm going to go second Soul Warden. If they have 2 burn spells, it's pretty annoying, but... Okay, they did have Play with Fire. Like I said, I really want to get to a point where we can get this Voice of the Blessed to a 3-3 or a 4-4. Then it's going to be hard for them to beat that. Okay, so they go double Swift Spear. I mean, I would like to go Voice of the Blessed into Portable Hole, but I feel like Iganjo being used as a removal spell definitely could come up. So I think I'm just going to play the Forest out here and attack. And then we can always Portable Hole next turn. We could always just Iganjo and then Portable Hole the other one later. Okay, opponent uses Static Discharge to kill the Voice of the Blessed. Hopefully they don't have another removal spell for the Soul Warden. Okay, so they attack. Oh, okay, Trenosara is a nice one. So we can run out to Trenosara, get a Scry here. Oh, okay, Company's sick. And then we can Portable Hole one of the Swift Spears here. And then I'm going to hold on to the Iganjo. There's no real punish for not playing out as a land. And it represents something that I could have. And then next turn we can just go Iganjo and then depending on if they tap out. Okay, they do tap out. They put Gigantha into their hands. Okay, that's a really good sign. So they don't have any burn spells. We can just fire off the Company now then. Ah, wow. We only hit 1 card, but we do get to make this Trenosara into a 4-4 and we get to scry for next turn as well. Oh, okay. Apparition's decent. I'll keep that on top. Better than a random card. It would suck if we put that to the bottom and then drew a land. We really want to keep the creatures flowing just to keep the Soul Warden ticking up. Or, keep the Soul Warden gaining us life to put counters on the Trenosara and the Voice of the Blessed. Okay, they just go for the Gigantha. So we did run them out of burn spells. Very happy how this game played out. Because now we can go Skyclave Apparition, and now I think... both creatures are going to be at 5 toughness, which was they'd have to use 2 burn spells to deal with any of them. I think the Swift Spear is more scary than the Kumano. And then, do we want Helioak? I mean, any creature is good to keep the Soul Warden ticking up, but I feel like we've already got big enough creatures, and there's a lot of other stuff in the deck that could be good. Maybe that was greedy. Maybe, I guess we do get another Scry off the Kumano here, though. Okay, opponent just scoops it up. Sick. Hey, and we're rank 1. Sick.